Today we're bringing you an unfiltered review of Terracotta Army from Board and Dice. I'm Mark Maya.
I'm Jess.
I'm Chris.
And this is Board Game Coffee. Let's do this.
Get back here this instant!
Thank you. Oh, I love you too. I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you. Thank you.
Alright, so we're going to start with a quick overview. Now this game has a lot to it, so I'm going to kind of make this light, just to give you enough understanding of how the game works, and then as we talk through the review, we usually explain how a lot of things work anyways. Okay, so here we go. Terracotta Army is a worker placement. Now, it plays, 2 to 4 people, and in a 3-person game, if I'm remembering correctly, you play with 4, you start with 4 workers. So your workers, you place on this rondel, and you place them at the bottom here. Now, what's interesting about this is when you place a worker, you get to perform 3 actions from top to bottom. But the position of this wheel changes throughout the game. So it changes what actions are available, what combinations of actions are available. So that's completely different from what it was before. And so basically, place a worker, perform all those actions. You can never have more than 2 of those little workers on the same space, so everybody's got to go to a different spot. The exception to that are these larger workers. I don't know what they're called. We're going to call them larger workers. Larger workers can be placed on a space with a smaller worker. Whether it be the same color or not, doesn't matter. But if the larger worker is there first, no worker can go in that spot. Sorry, there was a little interruption there. We had a dog burst onto set. Anyways, so where was I? You can place a bigger worker there, but once a big worker's there, you can't place a big or small worker there. That place is accounted for. But you have to upgrade these, and that's one of the actions you can take on this rondel. So I'm going to go quickly through the actions you can take. Not much. You can wet your clay. This gives you, this allows you to use a specific master action, because there's 6 masters. Each of them have their own action. This allows you to collect wet clay. That allows you to collect coins. And the cost of building a statue in here, your Terracotta Army, is based on which of these actions you take. So it could cost you 2, 3, or 4 clay. Now, you can only spend wet clay to build your statues, and your clay dries at the end of every round, so you got to kind of use it or lose it. You don't lose it. You can always come here, wet it, and it wets all your clay, and you're good again. But you can't do anything with dry clay. And now, as you're building, I'm going to get some of this clay. Yeah. As you're building your army, you always drop excess clay. You always drop 1. If it costs you 3, you're going to pay 2 back to the bank, and then or to the supply, and then 1 to the quadrant where you took the action. So these little storehouses around the edge, they kind of pile up with dry clay that you can collect later as one of the other actions. Most of those actions here, you see it looks like a lot, but they're all pretty much the same. If you see a picture of a master, you do the master action. This one is a little different. This allows you to take the first player token or the second player token, depending when you take that. And then the next round, you will be the first player, second player. Because this game doesn't necessarily go in a circle. Order of play is decided by the position of these. So in this case, it would go counterclockwise, if that was the order. So, and that's how it works. So it's not always around the table. Well, in a 3-player game, it's always counterclockwise or clockwise. But if it was 4 players, it could zigzag. Now, those I think are pretty much all the actions on top. What the masters do are different. We'll cover that in a little bit. Down here is you get these, I can't remember what these are called. I don't know if those are just called statues. But this is the ability you use to build these things. Now, these statues don't necessarily belong to anyone, except for the horse. Because the horse, you actually apply, you put one of your Terracotta Army guys on that horse. Then that's all yours. But everybody else does its own thing. So everybody else can take, almost everybody else. The kneeling archer, he's pretty much like, if this is your guy and you point the kneeling archer to him, that kneeling archer is always going to be associated with you. But we'll go over those guys in a little bit. So, the cost of the Terracotta Army guys, again, as I mentioned, are there. Now, when you take them, if you notice on this box, there's different scores. So the first one you take, no matter from what row, will get you 8 points. Now, in that row, it'll be 7, then 6, 5, 4, 3. So the more you take out of here, the less they're worth, because you get those points right away. But these guys are still worth 8, so you can take those. So if you want to just get points, you can just take all the guys in front. But that's not always the best strategy. As you'll see during the review. Now, every round also has this kind of like achievement bonus, and this is where you got a lot of scoring. Now, if you notice, the achievements will, here it's whoever has, in the first round, it's whoever has the most wet or dry clay. You just combine all your clay. Wet or dry doesn't matter. You count it up. Whoever has the most has dominance in that category. So they're going to get 5 points. Whoever has at least one clay will have presence, and that's 2 points. Now, dominance and presence is a concept that's carried out throughout this game. You'll always see these big numbers, small numbers. In this case, the inspectors will score you 7 points for dominance, 3 points for presence. What that means, we'll get into that later. But these are little achievements that you can get every round. It's a new achievement. But you can see what they are, so you could plot for the later achievements if you want. But your award points at the end of the round based on whoever meets that achievement best. Whoever has dominance and whoever has influence. Then you award points like that. Whew. Okay, now, this area here, we mentioned triggering masters. Each of the masters have a different ability. We won't go into what all of those are, but they each have a different ability that they'll do when you take that worker action. They also have the secondary ability, which is at the end of the round, all these masters will give you 1 coin. All these masters will keep one of your clays dry. Because as I said, wet. They'll keep it wet, sorry. Because as I said, at the end of the round, all your clay dries. So if you have those guys, they don't wet clay, they keep them wet. So that's pretty much that side of the board. Now, the main game is played here. And that's where you take these guys, these Terracotta army guys, you put your little bases on them, colored bases, and you place them wherever you want. I want to have them there. So this is going to happen throughout the game. People are going to be building, so this mausoleum just fills up with Terracotta army characters and these statues. So you put them there. And what they do, we'll cover that in a bit. So the placement of these statues is where you get most of your points. It could involve this. For example, there's actually 4 of these have to do with placement. Well, these are randomly chosen, so they're not always the same. But in this, I randomly chose these, and it just happened to be that those 3 quadrants are up for dominance, up for scoring in rounds 2, 4, and 5. And round 3 scores this horizontal line. So now how that works is basically, if it's that corner, you have your guy there, you just count points. I have one guy there, nobody else has anything there, so I'd have dominance. If Chris has one there, then we're tied. So, and if I have 3, 1, and 2, then I have dominance, and both of them have presence. Doesn't matter how much they have. So it's just having anything there or having dominance there. That's how dominance works. Okay, so that's that. And also at the end of the game, you get scored based on groupings. So if you have a group of guardians, officers together, that's what those are, officers or spearmen. Now they'll have their bases, your matching colored bases on them. And if you have those on them, so if I have a grouping of spearmen, then you get points for that grouping. Now, how much they're worth, say if I have 5 spearmen in this little corner and they're all orthogonally adjacent, then I get 5 points, 1 point each. But if Chris joins that party with one of his colored bases spearmen, if he puts a spearman in that group, then all of a sudden each spearman in that group is worth 2 points because there's 2 different players involved. And then if Jess joins, each spearman in that group is worth 3 points. So you kind of got to be careful how you play that. So you calculate those points at the end. And that's the majority of how the points work for these statues. And another thing is this over here. Now we're going to cover this and then we're going to jump right into the review. So the way these guys work, they all do something different. As I mentioned, the horse. The horsey you put there, do this. This is one statue. It doesn't, even though it takes up 3 spaces, it's not worth 3, still worth 1, but a statue takes up a lot of space. Now that comes in handy when you have things like this. These are your inspectors. Every round they'll score and then move up. Score and then move over. That's how they do that at the end of every round. Now how they score is they score dominance and presence based on whoever has the most dominance or presence in that column or row. That's how that works. So if you have the horse, here, I'd actually have, in this case, because there's nobody on the board, I actually have dominance in each of these. But even if there were players on the board, I'd be guaranteed to have presence in each of those spots. Because other players can't interact with other statues as in to move them out. You can't move them out there. So once my statue's there, it's there to stay. So that's how the inspectors work. They basically inspect columns and rows and award points that way. Now these statues here, this guy here, the footman, he scores basically whoever has dominance around him gets 8 points, and whoever has anybody around him gets 2 points. If you're not involved, you don't get any points at all. So that's how the footman works. And he's one of those tricky guys because anybody can score on that, even if you're not the person who played him. And to play these guys, it's got to be money, which I think I mentioned, and one of these weapons, if you have them available to you.
Yeah, you didn't mention the weapons and how that works around here.
Yeah, so when you get the weapon on this action, so here's the crossbow. I would flip the crossbow over. I'd flip the crossbow over, so now I have crossbow. And if I land on it, I already have my crossbow flipped over, it does nothing. It's just wasted action. But then, if I wanted the kneeling archer, I would have to flip that crossbow over, which I can pay that cost, and then I would pay 1 coin. But then, as you take statues away, it's the same 1 crossbow, but it's 3 coins to get this guy. So it costs more the more statues you take away. Now, the kneeling archer, what he does, if there was a tie, let's say Chris had, whatever. Hold on, let's take your base. Yep. Let's pretend this base is another one of these characters. All right? So, what's going to happen, this guy's bothering me, this is not following. What's going to happen is there's a tie here. So, if you're looking at who has dominance here, it's like, oh, I have 1 and Chris has 1 of our statues. So, who has dominance? We're tied. There's nobody has dominance. But if I had this kneeling archer pointed to me, then I win ties. Now, he breaks ties, but it's only if it's ties. So, pass me another purple. So, if Chris had another character in this row, it doesn't have to be in a group because we're going by the inspector, he'd have 2 versus 1. This guy doesn't do anything because it doesn't count as 1. He only breaks ties. He doesn't add to my number. So, that's how the kneeling archer works. And at the end of the game, he'll give you 2 points if he's facing you. The musician, we're going to use these pieces as your characters, Chris. Uh-huh. Musician scores 1 point for every statue in every column or row that lines up with him. So in this row, it would be 1 for Chris and 1 for me. And in this column, it would be 1 for Chris. So Chris would score 2 points off of that. I would score 1, no matter who put this guy here. So that's what they do. They're like supporting points, supporting cast of characters. And I think that's the gist of how this game works. Worker placement and positioning your statues here mean a lot. They play a big part in what you do here. Okay, so that is it. We are going to get ready for a review. You guys ready?
All right.
You ready? Okay, let's do this. All right, now you've heard our overview. We're going to get deep down into this unfiltered review. You guys ready? Oh, yeah. Now, this review's been a long time coming. It was supposed to be one of the first reviews we did coming out of Gen Con. That failed hard. And then we actually got to it not too long ago. Or 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago? A while ago. We got to it, and then that video was just a gong show.
Yeah.
So, like, the cameras died, there might have been a little bit of drinking, it was late, we were repeating ourselves, it was just a mess. The whole thing was a mess. I tried to edit and save it did not work out. So, we're going to do it again. And then what happened, we were actually going to do it again, and then, like, everybody got sick. It was like sickness after sickness after sickness, and just kept lengthening the time it took. So, we are getting back. We're back in the saddle. All right, here we go. Whew. Check myself. I'm ready. Okay, so, Jess, you haven't been here with this new format, but we're trying some new organizational things with our reviews. Okay. So we're going to start off with aesthetics and theme. Ooh. Aesthetics and theme.
I don't think that's changed. I think that's always been first.
No, replayability, I believe, was the original first one.
Maybe.
Aesthetics and theme was second. I know because I edit these things.
You're the expert.
Okay, aesthetics and theme. Hit me. Go. What do you guys think? Is it beautiful? Do you hate it? Is it ugly? Is the ugliest thing you've seen? Is the prettiest thing you've seen? Those are your only 2 options.
Only 2? Oh, I was going to play middle of the road. I love doing middle of the road. I would say it's pretty on the prettier side of things on the ugly pretty scale. If we're going to put a scale. I'm going to say prettier because it does have a lot of nice components and a lot of nice details, I think. This is nice and it moves.
You mean the rondelle?
Well. The rondelle? I do mean the rondelle. Thank you for clarifying that. So I think that is nice. The art on everything is really nice, particularly on these masters here. And then just the pieces. So we have all these statues.
I think the minis, like as far as the minis for the statues, I think they definitely look better than the minis for these guys. but I think it's also because these guys aren't limited to being so narrow. Like, these guys have to be narrow because they fit in this little box and they can fit upside down into this thing.
With aesthetics, I think that's just amazing. I love that box and the way it's set up. That the statue soldiers can flip down, and then when you take them, you just flip them up and get them ready. And it's easy to pack away. Now,
art-wise, like aesthetics, like I think the game is fine and pretty. Mm-hmm. You know, like it's not one of those like it wasn't like was it? I think it was Tang Garden. I opened up that game and I was like, oh, this is gorgeous. Did not like the game. I'm not a fan of Tang Garden. This game, I didn't open up and say it was gorgeous, but I was like, I like it. I think it's pretty. But I like it way better. Like, Tang Garden was crap. I did not care for it. This is good. So, I don't know where I was going with that, but I wasn't blown away. Yep. But the art is good. It's good. I love the box, though. Box art's great. Yeah. And you brought up this thing. Now, this is part of the components portion, because aesthetics kind of covers components, themes. It's a whole bunch of things. Now, this is great. This is probably my favorite thing in this game. Not my favorite thing in the game, but as far as components go, this is great because now for those of you who can't tell, all the minis for the statues you can build in the mausoleum are here. So you can take a spearman and then you can just flip this over and boom, you got another spearman. That's fantastic.
Well, then it makes it really easy too because you have all the points along the side, so it just makes everything so much easier to track. And what's nice, too, is you can't really see, I don't think from the cameras, but on the front and the side, bam, you can see what you get for, depending on which one you're choosing.
Yeah, so it's got reference around for all the characters. So it's here's what the officer does, here's what the guard does, here's what the archer or the crossbowman does, and here's what the spearman does. So it's good to have that little reference. And, you have these little weapon icons, tokens that you get that match. I like lining them up in the same order that's here because I find that helps a lot. Mm-hmm. And what's the best thing about this, which I think is very understated, is the setup. There's a few things. Like you mentioned, it's easy to tell the score because you take the first guy, because the way the game works is if I take this first guy, he's worth 8 points. If I take this guy down here, he's worth 5. You take them in order, obviously, so let's assume I took down to there. But it makes it so easy to tell. And the good thing about this is I take it out of the box and it's set up. Because when you put the game away, you just take all your minis and you just toss them in there. And it's good to go. So then when you're setting up the game, you just pop. You don't even have to do this. We just do this because it looks better. Mm-hmm. You pop them up and you flip them face up like so. And then they're good to go. Because if this was how, I guess, traditional minis were stored, you would have a portion of your board or a flat piece of cardboard where you'd have to take these out of their holders in the box and you'd have to line them all up. So you would know that it was, that row is worth 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3. But this is all nice and neat. This is genius. Now, when I first saw this at Gen Con, when I was there with Chris, I looked at it and I saw it on the table and I was like, what is in that thing? They didn't have this. So everything was like this. So all I saw was a bunch of these discs. All the minis were down. So I was like, wow, what is going on with that box? It looks so because it didn't line up pretty. And, everybody was kind of fudging them and the square bases were kind of all jostled. And I was looking at it and I was like, what is that?
Mark will have none of that. If it's out of place, it's Mark's got to straighten that.
And I was like, what?
He's losing it right now.
I was like, look, that looks what is that box? What's the point of that box? It seems pointless. I had no idea how the game played, but I was making judgment calls don't judge a book by its cover. That's what covers are for. I judge it all the time. So I was like, that's ugly, and I didn't know what it was for. And then I'm reading the rule book, and I was like, I don't get it. And then as soon as you put it on the table, you're like, I get it. Genius. I'm an idiot. It's genius. But here's last thing I want to talk about. This thing is I lost focus. That burst of genius.
Oh.
That kind of erased my brain.
So we're gonna call it genius?
Yeah, it was a burst of genius.
I even like the rondelle too. I like the way it works, the mechanics of it, the way it spins.
We're not talking about mechanics. It's aesthetics of the game.
But the look of that.
It's a circle
as well.
It's a circle, Chris.
But it spins. It's so pretty.
That's what circles do. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Part of seeing this on the table, it's because for me, board and dice was Tekenyu. That's what really brought me into board and dice. I love Tekenyu. It's a great game. It's a board and dice game. Excellent dice drafting, giant Egyptian thing with a monolith and it's not a monolith. What are these things? Obelisk? Obelisk in the center of the board. Great. But we're not here to talk about that. But when I saw this broken up into quadrants, I was like, oh, I'm getting kind of like a Tekkenu vibe. It plays nothing like Tekkenu, but it does have this thing that you build on, which Tekkenu does have a corner that's like that.
Yep.
So, when I saw this at Gen Con, though, other than this looking messy, it was played, and here's a shout out to Berkey from Game Toppers. I think he does a great job. And we have a Game Topper. We're not using one right now, but they had it on like one of those fold out tables with like a white tablecloth, and it was just there, and pieces were scattered all around, and things were like that, and it looked sloppy, and I was like, oh, that game doesn't look nearly as good as the box. You know, like the box. This is awesome. This is well designed. I wanted to just be based on this, and I saw it, and it didn't do it for me because it was just in the fold-out tables. But when I see games like this on like a Game Topper at a con, it looks so much better. Like this game looks so much better on this table, which is a custom job by Chris. Thanks, Chris. But this is a Game Topper mat actually.
Yep.
So on the Game Topper mat, on Game Topper tables at the shows, if you're like a publisher and you're wondering like, should you get like Berkey used to be a sponsor of our show. He's not anymore, but I'm gonna shout out anyways. If you guys have tables, if you can get like your hands on some Berkey gamer, some Game Toppers from Berkey, you should definitely do that. They make your games look, they pop, make them pop. They make them like showpieces. Mm-hmm. Mind you, the game sold out at Gen Con like day 1 or 2, so it didn't like really hurt sales.
Yeah.
But going into Gen Con, this was the only game that I wanted going in. I was like, Terracotta Army, I want it. When I got there, I saw a lot of stuff I wanted. Yep. But this is what I wanted going in. Okay. Sorry, I rambled on quite a bit there. Anything else before we move on from... Do you feel like this game draws you into the theme of Terracotta Army? Like, do you feel like you're a worker building this Terracotta Army?
I guess you're constantly getting statues. The goal is to get statues on here to get more points. So I find you are working with statues a lot and building statues and trying to get the clay. So I like the dynamics of the clay. Kind of brings you in that theme of creating something. You got to wet clay, not dry clay. You got to focus on stuff like that. So you kind of feel.
I do feel like I am the person building these sculptures. Like, but mind you, there's this crazy point strategy system that I'm pretty sure the actual clay people didn't. The sculptures didn't concern themselves with.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. I can say that, yeah, this seems like thematically like the art matches, the color palette matches. I feel like I am a guy doing a job to create these things and getting resources I need to make these statues to fill this mausoleum. And I'm somehow going up against you. Now, I don't know if that was a thing. And that's the thing. I don't know enough about the real-world Terracotta Army to say how well this matches the theme. Mm-hmm. From my layman's point of view of like what I think it is, I think it matches great. Mm-hmm. But some archaeologist is going to look at this and being like, all wrong. All wrong. They didn't have little buns with sticks in their hair. I don't know. But
the masters definitely add to it too, because you're using the master to help you get more points, but to create other armies as well and different things like that. So
that doesn't sound like an aesthetics or theme talk. What?
Kinda.
What?
The thing, because they're masters teaching you those trades to build the things. That's a theme, Mark. That's a theme.
That's a theme. Sure. Okay, so let's carry on, and our next category is learning. Now, I was the one that learned this. I read the rule book and I taught you guys. Now, the rule book seemed pretty clear. I also watched a playthrough from Paul from Gaming Rules. And he did a great job. So I watched that one night. I couldn't go to sleep. And I was just like, I'm just going to watch Paul play this. And I watched it and I was like, that makes sense. And then I kind of glanced through the rule book and I was like, I got it. Like, it didn't seem all difficult. Because there's a lot of icons on here. But a lot of them do the same thing. Mm-hmm. There's really like 5 different... Like, I count this as one thing. Because once you take their action, you just match the picture and then you do what it says. But you look at things like, oh, there's pictures of clay. That means you get clay, like wet clay. There's pictures of dry clay. You get dry clay. Like, it's pretty simple. Once you learn the iconography, it's like, we haven't played this in a while. But I feel like I can get back into this and be like, okay, I know what to do. I just got to play a worker. And as long as I understand what those do, I'm good.
It does seem like it's laid out very well to learn, I thought, because you basically start here, and depending on at the rondel, and then depending on what the icon tells you to do, it brings you to other sections of the board. So it feels very much, when you're learning it, like, okay, I can just focus on this rondel, and then it will direct me either to the masters, or to the statues, or to the mausoleum. So I found that very easy, because it just kind of breaks it into chunks to make it a little easier to digest.
Now, how did it feel for you guys? Because, like, again, I read the rulebook and I watched the video, but when I played with Brittany, she was the first person I taught. She had a hard time with scoring. So, like, learning how things scored, like, she had a hard time tracking that. And I feel that is probably the hardest thing to teach, and because it's like, you learn the actions, like, okay. But then you start talking about, like, here's how groups score. And if, like, there's 3 people in that group, the statues score more. If 2 people in that group, they score less. How things are linked, different statues. Like, there's all these different little scoring things. Some things score at the end of the round. Some things at the end of the game.
I find with a lot of games, it's like you can understand the game and how it works, and you learn the game and play it, and then you play it well. But it's the scoring at the end that can be the hardest part to kind of understand, because you're so focused on how to play the game itself that you want to score those points at the end, but it's okay if you don't completely understand. But once you play once or twice, the points seem to make a lot more sense.
Yeah, and I found for the points, when you're placing it, I think you kind of have an idea of what points you're going for at the end of the round or at the end of the game. You might look at the board and have no idea how the scoring is going to work in your favor, if it's going to work out or not. But I feel like when you're placing it, you have that idea. This also helped a lot. You had created these reference sheets.
Yeah. So these are printouts right from the book, and these reference sheets are good because they tell you, like, what all the characters are called and what they do. And this tells you how the masters work. But I found this one I did specifically for Brittany. Now, I basically broke this down. I made the sheet myself, where I have, like, you know, action phase, scoring phase, cleanup phase, end game scoring. And what I did, I kind of screwed up on tiles. All the parts where you score, I did a bold green. So inspector track scores and musician scores, and it's all in order. So action phase and scoring phase at the end of every round. And those are the things that score. Tiles, which are these achievements at the end, that was supposed to be green, but I kind of screwed up on that when I printed it, so it's not green. But that's why I kind of underlined it. But that was so Brittany could look at it and be like, okay, at the end of the round, this is all I have to concern myself with. At the end of the game, this is what I have to concern myself with. So, because even me, when I was learning this, I was forgetting things. I was like, oh, no, that scores now. No, I don't have to worry about that till the end of the game. But I should worry about it now because it scores at the end of the game. And then there's all this scoring here. So I feel like there's the scoring, it's not in one spot. It's like the scoring here, the scoring how you place these guys, and then some of it scores at the end of the game, some of it scores at the beginning. So that to me was the trickiest.
Yeah.
But one game under my belt, and I was good.
Yeah. It was like you had to get that one game out of the way, learn the different things, and then it was like, okay, makes sense. Now I know where they score. That first one, it can be a little tricky trying to remember where everything goes and how those points get scored for sure.
And the first time I played, I had all the reference sheets, so I found that was very helpful.
So yeah, if you guys want to print out reference sheets, I think that would help early players, help them learn, and I think that's good. But other than that, I think the game is, as far as a worker placement goes, it's the actual actions that you take and what they do is easy enough to learn. Okay, so, and it's a good rule book. Like I didn't have I was the only one that read the rule book, but it was a good rule book. Replayability. Would you guys play this again?
I was thinking about it on the way here.
You're like, I never want to play this again.
I enjoyed playing it, but it's not something where I have a drive to be like, you know what, I really want to play Terracotta Army tonight. Didn't reach out to me that I really wanted to play it again. I wouldn't mind playing it, like it doesn't bother, but it's not something that I think I would jump back to. With the selection that obviously we have here, it's not one that I would say it's first on my list to play.
Okay, again. I'm curious. What kind of games popped your head when you're like, games I want to replay?
Zombicide, the Winter Nights, the Betrayer one.
Dead of Winter?
Dead of Winter. Because that was just so painful. Gaia Project, Terraforming Mars.
Okay.
A lot of those.
So those are your go-tos. So you don't say this falls into one of your go-to replayable games.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Jess?
I agree with a lot of what you said. If somebody brought this out and said, hey, we're playing this, do you want to join? Sure, why not?
Absolutely. Yeah.
But it wouldn't be something I'd suggest. There's definitely other games I think I would prefer to play, but then again, worker placements aren't my go-to game.
Okay.
I'm never going to suggest a worker placement. I prefer personally co-op games. So I'd be much more likely to suggest something like that. As far as worker placement games go, I enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. But definitely not something that I would suggest.
So we see how it fits on your replay scale. But now, if you just look at this from the turn, because that's a personal look at it, which is what I wanted. Now, how replayable do you think the game is, as far as like, does it repeat itself? Do you figure out like, oh, there's one strategy because that could break a game. Like, let's take back to Viticulture, which I've mentioned in other videos before. When we played Viticulture, we played it once. We're like, love this game. Played it 2 times. Like, love this game. We got to game 4 and we're like, I'm done.
Yeah.
It felt like the same thing over and over again. So the replayability value went 4 games, boom, nothing.
Yeah, drop fast.
And then we added Tuscany, the Tuscany expansion, and then it was like, boom, we kept replaying that, boom, 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 over and over again, because it was different. You could try different strategies. So how do you feel Terracotta Army has as much of that? Because that might not be it for you, but keep in mind a lot of people watching this don't have access to as many games, so they might be looking for what's that. Is there that game that has the replay value kind of built into it?
I would say yes, because you do have the achievement that changes every game. The rondelle can throw in twists at you as far as your plans. Like, someone could steal it from you. There are twists and stuff. Even the point scoring, you think I got the squadron, and all of a sudden someone throws in a horse and takes over a whole section of it and throws you off. So there are changes in the game that do make it not samey.
Like, I'd say as far as variety, I'd say there's tons of variety.
Yes.
Like, even like you start a game, if the game was just like you start off and these wheels are randomly set up which they are at the beginning of the game, they're randomly set. But the fact that during the game you could pay to like turn these, like you're changing the game's what you can do in the game on the fly because you're paying to spin these things. So it's like you are changing the actual playable space on the board. You're having like a real-time impact on it. And I think that's fantastic. And the fact that where I play, if I take a horse or if I take this kneeling guy, what is it called? The footman. If I take the footman or the musician and I place them where I place them, that changes. Some games maybe I'll get a lot of horses. Other games I won't get any horses because it depends on this. And there's a combination of like me reacting, not reacting to what's happening during the game, me reacting to how things are happening, how they were set up at the beginning, how this wheel landed when the game started, how these things laid out when the game started. Do I want to try to go for the achievements right away? Can I just bail and be like, no, I'm going to focus on these last ones? And for me, there's so much variety in like which masters I take, which actions I take, where I place these guys, what kind of combinations I do. And then I'm also playing off you guys. You guys play differently. So you mix with different people, you start playing differently. So like I don't feel like there's one strategy I'm doing all the time. There might be one go-to thing I try to do. I was like, okay, this worked for me last time, I'm going to try to do it again. But then Chris could be like, I'm building a horse right through your plans.
Yep.
And I'm like, well, I'm screwed now. So much for those plans. I got to try to do something different. Because there were games where I've had that, like, Kayla did something amazing. And I was like, okay, cool. Next time, I'm going to try to do what Kayla did. But the situation was different because the people were different. The rondelle was different. So I couldn't pull it off because it scored well for her. So I was like, well, it's not working, so I have to adjust. So for as far as replayability that way, like, I think the game is very dynamic.
Yes.
We're not always going for the same people, the same stone statues. So that way, I think the replayability is fantastic. Now, I get what you guys are saying. Like this is probably like, I played Tekken before this as far as like replaying something, but not saying because this is a bad game, but I get what you're saying because you guys are coming from like, we have all these games, and that's kind of like the baseline of replayability. What I replay it the most, because I am replaying this versus like the 300-400 other games we have. But if you were just a person being, look, I want something that offers variety, would you say Terracotta Army?
I don't know if I would. I've only played this once. I've only played it with, I think it was 3 players.
Yeah, it was us 3.
Yes, 3. So it's hard to kind of get a sense. I I feel like I could play it a couple times. And I could play with the same people a couple times. And it would feel different. And like you said, there's different actions you can take. And I'm sure when you throw different people into the mix, like if you're doing game nights and you want something that's not too hard to learn and you're gonna be playing it with a bunch of different people, then I think, to your point, that changes what strategy you might have. But I do also feel like if you played it a couple times, even though there's a lot of options you could take, I do feel like you could fall into just doing the same strategy over and over if you find it works for you. And as much as things do change, I do feel like you're limited in what your options are. It's just the game. It's you're limited to what's on the board, obviously. And it might change, but still you're picking something from the rondel, and you're either going to get a master, or you're going to build a terracotta army, or you're going to place a statue. So I do feel like I think you could play it a couple times, and if you're not bringing it out all the time, if you're like, we're going to play it a couple times this month, and then we're not going to play it again for a couple months, and then bring it out again, I think that would keep it fresh enough. But it's not one you're going to play over and over, like every Friday night kind of thing.
So if I'm understanding, you look for a game that has, because this has actions, it has a very short list of actions of what you can do.
Yes.
It just, how it gets its varieties by mixing those up.
Exactly.
You would prefer something that's like, here's 8 to 10 things I can do. For you, that's...
Right, or there's a story and something happens and it changes it. Or you have kind of different levels, so there's something new introduced every time that changes it. That's just my preference.
So you like kind of like a game that evolves or kind of builds on itself.
Right.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's fair. So replayability for Jess, kind of like,
I'd play it a couple times, but I could see it getting a little samey.
You wouldn't kick it out of bed, but you're not going to play it every night from Monday to Friday.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Okay. Well, for me, I would definitely play this anytime somebody wants to play. And I think the appeal to me, as far as replayability, it goes a long way, is we haven't played this in a few weeks. I could play this right now, and I remember how to play. Because I know what the actions are. So that scores a lot for me, because I learn so many games and I forget them It's rare that I remember a game's rules more than 2 weeks. That's rare. But we haven't played this in 2-3 weeks.
It's done really well with the iconography, that if you remember that, you're pretty much good to go. Like, it's very well designed that way that it carries through.
It's a very welcoming game. So as far as you don't have to, like, you might have to glance through a rule book, but there's a good chance you just come in and you'd be like, oh, I get it.
Yep.
You might have to check some scoring things, but even this, for me, just looking at the sheet I printed out is enough. I don't even have to read that book.
Yep.
Once I learned how to play it, I was like, oh, I'm good.
Even once we figured out the design of the statues themselves, there's like, this one has a star, so it's telling you that it scores all around it. This one, it affects only just the front, and that's where this one, the musician is orthogonally.
Yeah, it's columns and rows.
Columns and rows, sorry. It's just, that's the way the piece is designed.
Yeah. So, because, everything is kind of like,
very well.
It's all designed to kind of like remind you how to play. Everything's a little like hint. I was like, this is how this works. This is how this works. There's arrows everywhere. There's no there's not a lot of guessing. You're like, okay, I get it. Even for how these work, there's little notes on top. There's not many notes written on the board, but just like, okay, I get it. I can skip that action and get player a coin, just like it says there.
Yeah, the rondel does a very good job of that. Yeah.
And all the scoring is on the board, so that keeps it easy too.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So let's move on. Oh, one thing I wanted to ask about replayability is, you only had one game. So actually, it might be good, because you've had a few games. I've played the most here. Did you feel like you understood the game? Game one.
I feel like I knew what actions you could take. I had no idea what I was doing. The first round I went in, and I was like, we're just going to try something and see if it works. But I mean, I think that's pretty
standard
usual for games.
Yeah.
I feel there's not a lot where you're just like, yep, I know my strategy going in. But I would say there's 5 rounds. I would say like after the second round, you're kind of like, okay, I have a good sense of the game. I know what all the icons mean. So that I felt like you needed maybe a round or two. But then once you have that,
so you wouldn't say like there was an entire throwaway game, because it wasn't a game where like I had no idea what I was doing. I need to play. I need to mess up one entire game before I know what I'm doing.
No.
No, and there's so many different ways to get points.
Okay.
Like there are a lot of different strategies you could try. So it didn't feel like I missed out on one strategy that would have won the game. That's just like superior to another strategy because I mean, whatever you're doing is going to affect what somebody else is doing. So it felt like you could still win the game.
Okay. And you almost did. Now, here's the thing. We're going to get into gameplay right now. Now, when we did our first failed recording, I did record the last round. So I'm going to try to see if I might slip some of that in the behind the scenes, if there's anything usable. Actually, I haven't watched it since. But when I set this board up, we didn't play today. I set this board up just so we have a prop in front of us and we can refer to it. Now, if you notice where the score things are, I had, actually, we both went through, we all broke 200. So I had 228, Chris had 205, Jess had 202. So that was our final score from the last game we played, where we did a review, and that review got messed up. But that's the only thing I put in the right spot, so we could bring that up and like gloat how I crushed you guys. And but Jess,
you're focused.
And Jess' first game is really close to Chris, who's played before, but it's Chris. Okay.
I think that was a burn for both of us.
Okay. So gameplay. Let's head into gameplay. What do you think of how the game plays?
I enjoyed it. I like the way you rotate through the different areas, starting off the rondel, and just kind of choosing your path on what you want to build, what you want to do, where you want to go. I really enjoyed the gameplay, and then you're all interacting at the mosaic or what? Mausoleum. When you're interacting there to see what other people are doing, you're trying to guess their plans. You know, are they going for this achievement, that achievement? Are they going for end game scores? What's going on? And you're just trying to figure it all out, and then playing your own strategy while you're going along.
Now, we covered a lot of the gameplay stuff in replayability. But what I like about this game is you can get fairly deep into the planning for this game because you know what all the scoring is through the whole game at the end of the round. And this can score you a lot. So you can be like, I'm going to try to get each of these, and I'm going to worry about them. Like, I'm going to score each of these achievements, but I'm going to worry about them round to round. Or you could plan for the last one and be like, I'm just going to go for the... You got to kind of keep that in your head. So I feel like in this game, it's got something where, for me, I'm planning what I'm going to do for the rest of the game. Like, even though I've started the game, I'm planning this is what I'm doing my round, but I got my eye on, like, I want that achievement at the end. Or I want to do this. I want to accomplish... Or if I can't do that, I'm like, okay... That it's, you know, it gets to a point in the game, it's like, it's too far, Chris got that. Because the game we played, I think it was this quadrant was the last one, and so it would have been like this. It was this quadrant of the mausoleum was the last one, and Chris had that filled up in like round 3 or 4. Like,
it was one of those ones where I was watching, because I saw you guys taking over the first two, and the third one, there's no way. So it became, I'm really going to focus on the last one, so that way, at least guarantee one.
So we knew, like, Chris had those 13 points.
By the time we got to that round, I don't even think there were any spaces left.
No, there was no space left. They were all taken up. So, but I like that how far you think is just, I guess, how much you can handle. Mm-hmm. Because I try to plan as far ahead as possible. And I mentioned in the replay section where I like the variety. And for me, the game does seem balanced because although you might try something, and an example that... It's something that happened. We mentioned the story in the original recording, but it's got deleted. There was a game between, it was me, Kayla, this is not Kayla, this is Jess, and Brittany. That's definitely not Brittany. So it was me, Kayla, Brittany. We were playing this. And Kayla at one point in the game, it was like round 2 or 3, she was like, I can't win now, I'm so far behind, I can't do this. And I was like, well, there's a lot of ways to score. There's not one way to do it. She had her mind. She was like focused. I'm like, this is the way I'm going to score. It wasn't working out for her. But I was like, then I explained how the grouping scoring works. And she's like, oh, okay. So then she started we had a group here where all 3 of us were involved. It was like spearmen. It was like all these guys. And there was a bunch of them. And all 3 of us were involved. So that means all spearmen in that group were worth 3 points. And then she had them where they were like snaking all the way over there. And I was like, oh, she's going to get so many points. She's going to get 3 points per spearman because we're all in there. And she made this huge line of them. And I was like, oh, that's going to be bad. As Kayla went from like, I'm losing, I can't catch up to like, she's going to win this. Like, I don't know how we can catch up to Kayla. And there was a conversation we had in the game. Because there's one thing about this game is there's not much. Actually, there's nothing you can do to other people's statues. I can't affect your statue. You place it, you're there. Which I like that. It kind of takes a little bit of stress off me. I'm like, okay, I'm not worried that, Chris is going to be a dick. He's going to move my statue. I'm good. So there's the guard, I think it's the guard. He's got an ability where he can move a character. And you can move a character wherever you want. Well, not in like a row and a column. So if he's here, I can go like, and move him over here. But it has to be your character. I can't touch other people's characters. So imagine this is filled with like spearmen and there's a snake up there of spearmen. Like it just keeps leading up there. Brittany played a guard somewhere over here for some reason, whenever she was trying to get points for something. She played it over there. And she's like, oh, I don't know what I can do with this ability. Like, I can't do anything. I can't move any of my guys to make any difference to get me any points. Because she was thinking, get me points. How do I move characters to get me points? And that's how I always thought of it. But that moment, she asked, and I was like, well, if you move that character, you really screw over Kayla. And Kayla was like, Mark, shut up! Because what happened, this was Brittany's character. And Kayla's characters are spawning off of that. And Brittany's character was kind of like the linchpin. She held this group and Kayla's snake all together. So all Brittany had to do was go, boop, move her character one space. She broke that chain, and all of a sudden, all of Kayla's spearmen that were worth 3 points each were now worth 1 point each. Mm-hmm. And the funny thing is, before Brittany did do that, because I suggested it, Kayla was like, shut up, Mark. And then she's like, Brittany, you can't do it anymore because Mark told you to do it. You can't do it. And she's like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. That's not fair. And then she sits there and she's like, but that is a good idea. It is a good idea. And then she did it. So that upset Kayla. And so now she went from like having 30 points, 32 points with the characters to having like 6 or 9 points with the characters. Like it was just like, oh, that's such a dip. And she came in last that game. Because of that one move. She went from like, I'm going to win, because it was a pretty tight score, from I'm going to win to lost, because Brittany went, boop. And the thing is, you'd think, oh, Kayla could just fill in that gap again. But Mark was next. So Mark took a character that was totally unrelated and went, boop, blocked it right up. That wasn't going to happen. So I locked it in. That wasn't going to happen ever again. Because she had a huge lead and she was very upset and she lost it. So I get it. And it wasn't like I talked Brittany through a strategy. I was like, if you move that guy, you're going to screw up Kayla.
So what I'm hearing is you ruined this game for Kayla. Maybe. She will never play this game again.
It's possible she'll never play
it. And that you're a dick.
No. Brittany's a dick for taking my advice. She didn't have to, because she didn't see it. So it was never going to happen. So then I said it. If she wanted to be fair, she would have just not done it. Because she said she wasn't going to do it.
Deflect.
Mm-hmm.
And then she did it. She's a grown woman. She makes her own decisions.
You're just like the devil sitting on the floor being like, you could do it.
Okay. Now, I don't think this game has any runaway leaders. Like I did crush you guys in this game. But the last game that we had, I think we covered this in the last video that got deleted. I was in the lead most of the time. I think at some point Chris passed me for a few spaces, and then I passed you again. Okay. But it's usually pretty close. Everybody's tight. And at the end, because we got 200 something points, but when you're playing round 2, round 3, and you're at 25 points, you're like, how the hell do you get around this board? And you get to round 4 and 5, and you're just ripping around this thing. And it's exciting how many points you get. And I like games where you figure out the end, some points, and you kind of get an idea of points are, but then you start calculating combos and how that works. And then you get a little surprise winner, or it gets tight. You're like, oh, who's going to win between those two? I like that.
Yeah, I love that. Scoring can really change when you start calculating out the statues there at the end.
Because that's one of my favorite things about playing a game like Terraforming Mars.
Yep.
Terraforming Mars is you start calculating your cards and you're like, oh, Brittany's gonna win this, and you start calculating your cards oh no, Mark won this. So then it works out good.
I do feel like I don't know what these are called, but I do feel
weapons?
The weapons, I didn't use them enough. Because mine were never flipped over. I felt like I was doing good at the beginning. My strategy was just kind of getting the statues on. And I focused more on that. And but whenever I place them, you get an extra
ability if you have the weapon.
If you have the weapon. And I just never had them. So it did feel like I was missing out a bit. But I was also like, I want to get in there. I want to put my stuff on. But that might not have worked out for me. So I do feel like that also gives some more options to the gameplay, but I may not have used that as much as I should have.
We covered it in replayability about I don't think there's any dominant strategy, so we don't have to go over that again because there's a lot of adjusting, and I think if you do something, you can respond differently to that.
Yep.
And if you try to do the same thing every game, it might not necessarily work out for you. Like I had a game where I just kept moving these inspectors, and I kept it was a game I scored. It was one thing. I don't know if I'll use that in the video as behind the scenes. Brittany was like, "Oh, that game Chris beat you at," and we're both like, "I don't think that happened."
No. But I was like, I didn't want to break her heart.
I checked the score. Yeah. I had 280. You had 266.
Was it? I thought it was a lot closer because remember it was the first time you passed 200.
Yeah, we both passed 200. We flew by. I think I got a lot of extra points because of this.
Yeah.
So because I actually recorded that now because she said it and it was sitting back in my head. I was like, "Who won that game?"
I knew you won.
And I checked.
Like, I don't want to hurt Brittany's side here.
But yeah,
she's a Team Chris.
But as far as the gameplay goes, I think we covered a lot of it already. The variety you get from this, the masters, you change up how these masters work, and when you recruit a master, which is a little mechanic, is every time you get a master, you kind of have to pay an entry fee. So if I want to use this master, I have to pay $1, and I put it there, and then I don't have to do that again. But every time I take that action here, where's he? He's over here. Every time I take that, I don't have to pay the $1 anymore. I already have a person there. It's like I put a down payment. I'm good. I can use him whenever. And then if for this guy, I pay $2 if I want. And I'm like, okay, no, every time I pay $2 the first time, every other time I stop there, get it for free. And they get more and more expensive. So it's like 6, 5, 4. I've never gotten all of them down. I think I might have gotten up to 5. All right, I think most of gameplay we can probably sum up because we've covered a lot of it.
Yep.
I don't know if there's any much more because the game definitely feels balanced. I'm just looking at my notes. I don't think there's any dominant strategies or runaway leaders in this game.
No.
I think it's just good. As far as gameplay goes, I think we covered most of that.
One thing I do want to point out, I kind of mentioned it when I was talking about the weapons, but it does feel like you want to be somewhat balanced between having coins, having clay, and having these weapons, because you can still take your actions, but it does feel like you're missing out on an option you could do if you don't have that. So that's just one thing about gameplay. It does feel like you kind of want to have a little bit of everything rather than just focusing on, okay, I need all these coins to do things, or I need all this clay. That you do want to spread it out a bit.
I feel like one thing about this is I'm always jealous about what you guys are doing. So like if I don't get a lot of masters and you guys have all those like, oh, you get 3 clays when you land on him. It's like, but I want 3 clay. And like I have the other master, but I was like, I don't want his ability. I want your ability. I always want what you guys are doing. Like, you guys move this. I was like, oh, but I want to be able to do that. You place it. And I was like, oh, I wanted to place that guy there. Like, because there's so many good things to do. And I was like, I might have an idea, but do you do something? And I'm like, oh, maybe that's the better. Like the grass is always greener on the other side for me.
Well, there's definitely some times where I've been like, oh, I really want that master. It's going to let me do something really cool if I choose this, because there's one where it lets you do the action again. And
this guy.
I've had it before where I've wanted to do it, and I'm like, I don't have enough cash, because I get to a point where it's like, okay, I need 4 coins now to activate it. Yeah. And I'm like, I want to do it so bad because it'd be so cool, but I have like 1 coin short. Yeah. So that's always a little.
I had that last game. And what's sad about this one is, if you line up with, actually, he was lined up. He was over there. I'm gonna bring it over here so I can point to it. But there's the guy that doubles things, and he doubles this action. But if it's this action here, you can't get 2 of the big guys.
Oh yeah.
So it was like that's a waste. Like and it's crappy when it lines up like that. And I do like paying coins, but when you pay a coin to turn that, you always kind of go, I was like, am I helping anybody else? Am I screwing up anybody else? Because you rather screw up people than help them. You definitely don't want to help people in this. Okay, so I think we kind of scattered this conversation, so gameplay was covered all over the place. And as far as the next category, player interaction, we've kind of discussed that too, but I just kind of want to sum up that your choices kind of affect how other people react, but you can't affect people directly. But it's not, although I can't affect people directly, I don't feel like I'm playing by myself. I do feel like I'm playing against you. Because there are strategy games where like I'm just playing my own little thing and I'm doing what I want, and then it's like we're playing all solo games, we come up and we're like, let's compare scores. Like I am playing in your area. So it's like a big puzzle. And I got to work around what you guys are doing, but you guys can't be like, I'm going to move your character over there. The most interaction I saw with something like that was when you can move, like when Brittany disconnected from Kayla's in the story told earlier. Or like you can move this and screw up.
Yeah, when you move the inspectors.
Move the inspector. That can screw up scoring. But again, I'm
did that quite a bit to me that one game. It was constantly like that, and that was affecting me a lot. So yeah.
But I can't directly move your guys, but I can affect how you get. Could move that guy and affect how you score.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is one thing. I could do like bring in this guy, and now it's a tiebreaker.
Yeah.
So, but I still feel like I'm affecting me, and I'm doing things for me.
Yeah.
Where I guess in other games where it's... And I could block you here. I guess that's also another thing.
rundown.
I could be like, boom,
Yeah.
block you. Or if I have one of the big guys, which I lost on the big guys,
Or-
I can just go like, bam, I don't want you to do that.
Or spin the rondel just to
Yeah.
mess you up. Yeah.
Pay a spin just to screw somebody over.
Yep.
So like, yeah, you could do some things. So there is...
Yep.
I think there's just enough.
Yeah.
It's not enough where I don't think you're not irritating me. Like, I'm still doing my things.
It's a mild irritation.
Yeah, it's a mild irritation. Because I feel like what I do still stays in place.
Yeah.
This thing's the thing that changes the most that I do myself, is the inspector.
At the same time, though, as much as it feels like you can't impact other people too much beyond kind of taking some choices away from them, it's... Oh, I lost my train. It's gone.
Train's gone.
It's gone.
It
It was a good point. It was a
That's-
good point.
It was too good. It was too good for this world.
I'm going to remember it
If it comes back to you.
in an hour.
If it comes back to you. Okay. So let's talk about game length. Now, for us, we're an AP group. We tend to take a long time to do things. This is 90 to 120 minutes. Now, for me, if you know how to play this, I think you could play this in 120 minutes.
Yeah.
2 hours? I think you could do that.
Yeah.
We take a lot of breaks.
We do. There's a lot of breaks. We can't really... if you calculated this, it would be 4 hours to 6. Like, whatever. Because it's like, there'd be all the drinking, getting drinks, ordering food, letting the dogs out. It's a whole thing. So, game length, we're all... Like, it's good. It's acceptable.
Yeah, it's
If you're looking for, like, something that's like 90 to 120 minutes, I think this is it. Your first learning game is going to take a little longer.
Yeah.
And I feel like there's a lot of time at the end where you're calculating score.
Yeah.
That's a good, 15 minutes. If you're just, figuring that out. Because you want to do it slow. You don't want to mess anything up.
There's a lot there.
Yeah. Okay, so now, final thoughts. This is it. This is where you're going to tell the people, do you like this game? Do you hate the game? Should they buy it? Should they maybe, I don't know, try it out for... What do you think? Do you like it? And also stick to your personal opinion. How much do you like it? We're not rating. There's not a number. So, let your emotions flow. Go.
For me, I would say I enjoyed the game. I would recommend it for some people, especially if they like worker placement. As we said, it's a very pretty game. There's a lot of stuff going on. It is replayable. Just depends on your style of gameplay and what kind of games you like. This isn't my type of style that I would like to replay a lot of. But again, I would have no problem if it did pop out and I'd replay it. I'd have no problem with that at all. So I'd say with some people, absolutely, definitely a good purchase.
No, one thing I want to cover is, which we didn't cover earlier, which I got to adjust these sections. We're massaging those. Is, did you feel like there was a lot of downtime between, when it wasn't your turn?
No, not a lot, because it was just enough that you could kind of get your strategy going, then see what they did when you could make that little tweak by the time you came back around. I don't think it was too much of a...
Yeah, because you're not physically doing anything on your turn, but as soon as you're done, you're like, I gotta think of my turn, and then you're watching, what are you gonna do? Don't do that, I gotta do this, You're gonna spin the wheel, you're a dick, I gotta do this again now. And you're just planning it all in your head, you're like, do I have enough money, do I have enough clay, I'm gonna do this. And you're kind of playing through the steps, like, okay, I got it. And then somebody turns the wheel, and you're like... and then it messes everything up. So yeah, downtime, no. I just wanted to kind of throw that in there.
Yeah, and this was a point I was going to make earlier. As much as other people are going to affect your options, there's not a lot people can do to you here, but you are paying attention to what other people are doing. It's not a game where the only interaction, I think, is they're taking away some of your options. It's like, okay, what are they planning here that I either want to be a part of or I want to block?
Yep.
So... To your point where if there's a lot of downtime or not, you're always paying attention to what other people are doing. Either not necessarily it's to mess them up, but also to be like, what are they trying to do that I maybe don't want them to, or I want in. I want in.
You can't just be like, I'm just gonna try to score more than you. You do have to. So the more we talk about it, I think there's a lot of player interaction in this.
Yeah.
Because the more you think about it, you do have to watch what other people are doing if you want to win. You can't just be playing your own game in your own little head. You got to be like, what are they doing? Oh, they're going to score a lot of points. And what really can screw you over, if somebody has a grouping of the same characters, like a bunch of spearmen, and you're like, oh, I'm going to throw my spearmen in there. That's a terrible idea because you're going to give them a bunch of points and you're going to get a speck of those points. Mm-hmm. So you got to be careful where you place for something like that.
And we played that game, just the two of us. you could almost tell when I was going to lay an archer. It's like I would try to set it up like maybe he doesn't know I'm putting a guy with these archers over here, or sorry, crossbowmen. How they score is if you have the weapon crossbow and you flip it. When you put him down, he counts the points between
the spaces
between the characters.
Yeah, it's his ability where he can get extra points based on. So like if he was up in that corner and this guy's all down here, was that 7 points?
Yeah.
Because you count all the spaces and he gets those many points, which is
it's a great way to get points. But it's like when you see me put my archer there, you're like, I know what you're doing, and I'd put a guy out in the middle of nowhere like that, and then all of a sudden you would see, you'd be like, oh yeah, then you'd get an archer and go, haha, ooh, that's my plan. It's like I kind of gave it away.
I do feel like, though, when we were playing, the three of us, there was a lot of times where it was like, okay, come on, just pick somewhere on the rondel. Like, I just want to know what you're going to do, because I have, like, 2 options, and I want to know if you're going to mess them up. And then I felt like by the time it got to me, I was like, okay, bam, this is what we're doing, unless Chris turned the wheel, because he turned the wheel. And then I'm like, oh, Chris! But so there can be, I think, if people are deliberating a lot, and you're just like, come on, just pick something. But, again, then you're planning.
I agree. If you're not very good at the game, there could be a lot of downtime for you.
I wasn't with downtime for me.
You came in last.
I was like, let's go.
You were last.
I also play...
That's what I'm saying. There's downtime for you because you had to wait for us.
Oh, yeah. That is true.
Yeah.
That's how I play games. I am just like, we're just going to try something and see how it goes. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't.
Mm-hmm. This case it did not.
It didn't.
It did not.
The last couple of games hasn't worked out, but it was fun still.
Okay.
I still enjoyed myself.
So do you recommend Terracotta Army?
If you like worker placement games, I would recommend it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. But not for you.
I would play it if somebody brought it out.
Okay.
I'm not going to go out and buy this game.
You don't buy anything. You buy adventure games.
Why would I buy games when I can come play them here? I would just be like, Mark, I'm taking your game.
Okay, but
you're on to something else.
So you can go as far as like, if you like worker placements, you would recommend Terracotta Army.
I would.
Yes. And you're kind of the same way.
Yes.
Now for me, this will be the first ever Unfiltered review where I'm awarding the Board Game Coffee seal of approval. And it's right here. I don't even know what it looks like yet. there it is. So, Terracotta Army, I really enjoy this game. And for me, Board and Dice is like they're knocking it out of the park. Like the games I've played, amazing. I love Tekken.
Yep.
I love Terracotta Army. Like those 2 games, like Tekken is probably my... I had a list of games like top 100, top 50. A new one, because I think Terraforming Mars made the first one. And then I played Tekken, and that's my new number 1. And like... Terracotta Army is one of my favorite games of this year. I haven't finished playing games this year, you know? Oh, maybe there'll be a new champion. But it's great. I don't know if it's the favorite, but it's definitely one of my favorite games I play. Like I really enjoy playing this. I enjoy playing it to the point like even if I lose, I get frustrated, but I was like, let's go again. Mm-hmm.
And they brought us Teal'c too, right?
Teal'c.
We
haven't played that. We got a quick demo of it. It looks interesting.
Yes, that one I really want to check out.
We haven't played.
I enjoyed that little demo we played.
But yeah, so Terracotta Army, Board Game Coffee's very first seal of approval. So like, I think if you like worker placements, you need to have this in the game. If you like a competitive, thinky like game, for me that has a lot of replay value because the game board changes a lot and there's not a dominant strategy that something people are doing all the time, then I think you should have this game in your collection. So I don't think you would be disappointed at all to have this in your collection. If you're looking to build, you're looking for something with the seal of approval, Terracotta Army. First one. It's not necessarily the first game I would buy, but it's the first game we reviewed that I'm giving that seal to. So for me, it's a guarantee must-have. And as a person who plays games, I would definitely... If I played this at your house, this says a lot. We've played games on Unfiltered reviews where I was like, okay, if I played this at your place, I'd be like, yeah, it was okay, but I wouldn't buy it. This game, if I played at your place... like separate, if we're like separate people, I play at your place, I go home and like, I want to buy Terracotta Army because I want to play it with my friends.
Gotcha.
It's not just a thing, like I want other people to experience this. And I guess that's kind of how I look at it. Do I want other people to experience this with me? Mm-hmm. Yes.
Also, another bonus, Not a giant box.
No, it's not a giant box.
There's so many giant boxes you have to find
giant
space
boxes.
for.
Yeah, yeah.
Fits on the shelf nicely.
Hence why we're not even using shelves anymore. We're just stacking them on top of each other. Okay, now as far as any other notes, if this game ever came out with an expansion or anything, for me it would have to be a different section. Or maybe like these wheels come off. You could pop it out, put more actions on there, and kind of switch it up. But I don't think it needs an expansion right now. So I've played it. It's got a lot of variety. It doesn't have that same viticulture problem that I said that the other one had where it got old. For me, it kept going. Okay. Any other last words before we sign off?
The only thing I don't remember, does this play differently if there's a different number of players?
You get a different amount of workers, and that's it. I appreciate a game that has an easy setup. Because, like, if we're playing... if we're playing more... I can't remember which order it goes in. It's like if you play more players, you get more meeples or less meeples. Is it less? Yeah, you get
that
less.
Makes sense because you have less to place
Correct.
on the wheel.
So yeah, so if you add another player, you just take away meeple.
Yep.
Pretty straightforward.
And that's it. So I like a game where it's like, bam. Right now we just set up Mosaic, which is we're playing it up right after this. We're going to play Mosaic, and that's from who does it? Forbidden Games, I think. And it's a big table hog, and I had it set up for 3 players because I was going to play it on Friday. But Kayla couldn't show up. And then me and Brittany got tired, so we're just like, screw it. We'll play Saturday, so it's today. But now you guys are over. So now we went from a 3-player game to a 5-player game. And that game is not easily adjusted. I had to change the cards, we had to reshuffle, we had to deal out new cards, we had to put new tiles on the boards, we had to flip them over. It was like a thing. But if one other player wants to join this, we just change our meeple count, and we're good to go. That I like. Oh, and then there's a little extra. Players get a little extra coins or clay at the beginning. But it's so simple to add people in and toss them out if there's last minute guests. All right. That is all. Let's take over and say goodbyes. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We hope you enjoy this Unfiltered review. Please like, subscribe, tell your friends. And that is it. We will see you next week. Everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Anyways, I got my 6 clay.
I can't see. I don't know if you know how far I am and how blind I am.
Go.
You just so
So
you
blind.
can see the screen.
You can see
It's so big. It's so big. Do you see how small these are?
She
So
said.
small. That is what she said.
I know what I want to do, Chris. Hurry up. Hurry your ass up. Hurry up your ass up, Chris.
I was gonna say whoever made my last drink,
You totally fucked me.
not great. But then I remembered I
Fantastic.
made my last drink.
Oh, that doesn't work. Never mind. I'm taking that back.
And then I get to build something. And I'm going to build a footman for 3.
Why do you have an accent? Where did that come from?
It's
I don't know.
Also,
People wondering too.
what is the accent?
I have no idea. It's
Evil German.
Swedish?
I'm guessing evil German.
I've been watching Sound of Music.
Maybe Swedish. Yeah. Brittany, where should I put it? Here or here or here?
Whoa.
We're on a team now.
No, you can't ask the sober person.
That's not fair.
We're on the teams.
all I will say is
why even preface the sentence with all I will say if you're gonna say it anyways?
I love you, Mark.
Other Mark, if anybody.
Not this one.
Not this.
Bleh.
What?
I mean,
I mean,
I don't know how to not make it weird.
You're off the show.
My husband's name is Mark, also confusing.
No, your husband's name's not Mark.
It is Mark.
It's Merrick.
It is Mark. If you call him Merrick, he'll be like, you're cut off.
It's Merrick.
He will be like,
I would totally go. I don't
No.
get it.
I would
'cause
take Merrick.
it is not Merrick. It is Marek.
Oh,
Difference.
Big fucking difference.
Big difference.
Marek.
Marek.
I would take Marek over Mark any day. It sounds like something in Braveheart. Marek, are we ready to go to battle? Me and Marek.
Right?
Right? I would take Merrick over
Marek.
Mark any day.
What?
No. You have no
something.
crossbow to flip over,
I just
mofo.
flipped it over to get
No,
that.
you didn't.
Did you?
Yes, I did.
Did you?
Did
I just flipped it over to do that.
All right. Okay, we'll trust him. I didn't see him
Oh.
flip over
I saw
shit.
nothing.
Rewind that, you will see
I
it.
didn't see him flip over shit. Do you saw him
just
flip?
were
You
not
saw him
paying
flip over his crossbow?
Sure.
Hold on, whoa. You saw
something with
you see, you didn't see him either. You didn't see me either. You're like accusing me of not paying attention.
How
just
often do
saying.
I cheat?
We should play more Etherfields.
Do you want the answer to that?
Christmas time?
Screw up is different.
I'm off
purpose?
That's
for 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Let's play more
On
Etherfields.
purpose.
More Etherfields.
Screwing up.
You with a fucking diamond stabber.
It stabbed me too.
You
This
can't
one.
get him in shit if you're not paying attention.
I'm trying to pay attention.
No, you're not.
I am.
No,
Too
you're
Clay,
not.
take it. What's taking you fucking
Let
forever?
him do
It's fine.
his
You can
turn.
do it. Take
I'm
it.
not stopping him from taking his
take
turn.
And that's all I
Oh my
Yeah,
god, how
but
much
you're being
clay do you have?
distracting.
Are you
You're, like,
done?
trying.
Yes.
Jesus, that took
Like a stab.
forever.
No, it didn't.
Ever. Okay,
Because I was waiting for you to pay
Fun-
attention to
fun
what I was
story.
doing.
I'm just saying, we should play more Etherfields in December, right? It's a good game. I want to play more.
it's great. Brittany, you're probably not ready for me to share this story,
Oh no.
but I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. So,
Am I
fun
in the
fact.
story?
Yeah, you are. It's all about you,
Sweet.
actually. It's all
I don't
about
like
you.
the story anymore.
What are you saying? No, don't do
It's
it.
great. So, we met Jess through Mark, or Merrick, or whatever. And the thing is,
Stop, that's so mean.
I prefer that name. I think it's
so,
really cool.
yeah, I
think it's
agree.
really
I agree.
cool.
We all agree.
We all
3
agree.
out of 4 people agree Merrick is a better name than Mark.
He will burn to the ground friendships for calling him Marek.
Okay, so here's the thing. Here's the story. So we would get together, and then you guys would go home, and then in
We
time,
only have it like once or
in
twice.
time, we would be like, "What's Mark's girlfriend's name?" It's better.
So
It
insulting.
was only the second time. We did it twice.
It's better. It's like we figured it out.
Because we met you in like a grounded
That's
function
fair.
the
Yeah,
first
yeah.
time,
I
and we
wanna
didn't catch
say
it.
It was
So Brittany's putting out
30th
5.
birthday and Boozapalooza.
No, it
Hold
was
on.
way before that.
Was it? You came over to my apartment.
Yeah, we played.
You were at my apartment and we played some superhero
Marvel
game.
Legendary.
And you did
Boozapalooza
not
was
remember my name?
That was the third time we hung out. We remembered it by then.
What?
I don't think we did. So here's the thing. So we're terrible with names, and the thing is, we kept
I'm also
bringing.
terrible with names. I'm so offended.
Here's the
So
thing.
offended.
Why did you go
So
down this
at
road?
the time, we were watching Jessica Jones,
Oh, yeah.
and while we were watching it, the guy who played the season, Jessica Jones season 1. There's a scene in one of the episodes where he's like, Jessica!
And you're like, that's it. That's her name. It's
That's
Jessica.
exactly what happened.
The worst. I'm just saying you guys are the worst.
Every time we
Reevaluating our friendship.
Every time we had to bring it up, we're like, what's your name? We're like, Jessica!
No.
I do say,
I'm just kidding.
I get you guys. If we ever split up, I get you guys.
Yeah, we do. We love you guys.
I steal you.
You're ours, for sure.
Even though you didn't remember my name.
You're living in the past, Jess. Thanks for joining us. If you like this video and you want to see more, subscribe to our channel. It's the best way to keep up to date with everything we do here at Board Game Coffee. But if you want to see more right now, we got plenty of videos to choose from. And if that's not enough, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. I'm Mark Maya, and this is Board Game Coffee. And remember, have fun, keep gaming, be social. See you next week.